Okay. You know what? Here's the thing, I really like the story of Moses. And you know what? I can even tell you that I just noticed that his mother, she was a very smart lady. And you know why? Let me explain it to you, okay? So, when you read the story, you know that Pharaoh actually commanded all his people, saying, every son who is born, you are to throw into the Nile, but every daughter you are to keep alive. Okay, so the Pharaoh said, throw every son into the Nile. And you know what? Moses' mother, she actually did this. Did you notice this? Because actually we read, but when she could no longer hide him, she got him a papyrus basket. Actually, in original, it is written that it was ark. That is pretty nice. She put baby Moses into the ark and covered it with tar and pitch. Then she put the child in it and set it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. So Pharaoh said, throw your child into the Nile. And what she did? She said, okay, I will put my child into the Nile. She was a pretty wise lady, And you know what? Just the fact that she created the ark and that Moses, he really used that word, that he was in ark. He was saved because he was in an ark, I really believe that he wrote this way to express this thought that both Noah and Moses, they were made, to bring salvation for human race. And God had to save them in order to save others. And you know what? And this is exactly what his mother did. She created the ark and she put baby Moses in this ark into the Nile. But you know what? I can tell you that Pharaoh revenged in that situation, because you know what? He revenged with the same. Because I can tell you, when Moses went to Pharaoh and he said, this is what God is saying, let my people go. Do you know that Pharaoh actually said, okay, let them go. And I am not writing a new story. This is exactly what Pharaoh said. Moses said, God is saying, let my people go. And the reply of Pharaoh was, yes, let them go. And I will read it to you. It's Exodus chapter 5, verse 7. You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. He revenged with the same. Moses said, let them go. And Pharaoh says, okay, I will let them go to take the straw, but I will not let them go from the slavery. And you know what? We know the story. We know the whole story. We know that it was like all the time God was saying to Moses, go to Pharaoh, say to him, let my people go. If not, I will strike you with this. I will strike you with that. And you know what? And God had to do 10 plagues for Pharaoh. But until his firstborn was dead, Pharaoh couldn't say, yeah, let them go. Actually, we read it at the end of this story, It's Exodus chapter 12 and verse 31. Then he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, "Rise, go out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as you have said." And you know what? I like that story, and actually, I always like to compare this story with our own life. And actually, we are comparing it, being in a slavery, in Egyptian slavery. We are comparing to being in a slavery of sin. And this is true, but there is a huge difference between Egyptian slavery and slavery of sin. And you know what's the difference? The difference is that Israel, they were enslaved after they saved whole Egypt from starvation. Right? You know the story. They went to Egypt because during the time of Joseph, he was a very wise guy, and he was the one who said to Pharaoh, "Well, there will be 7 good years and 7 bad years, so use these 7 good years to prepare yourself to collect enough money, to collect enough food for the next 7 years," and so on and so on. So this is exactly what they did. And then the whole nation went to Egypt. On the beginning, everything was great, but then, they were enslaved, even though they should be treated as heroes, right? But the difference is that when we are talking about slavery of sin, we were enslaved by sin because of what? Because of conscious decision. That was the decision of our first parents, right? To make a rebellion, to say, "Oh well, we have everything, but everything is not good enough for us, so let's try something more." And actually, this is also our decision. And you know what? That's why I believe that in the situation of Israel, God said, "Pharaoh, they are your heroes, and you are treating them as slaves. That's why you will be punished for this." But in our situation, because we are not in Egyptian slavery, we are in slavery of sin. What can God say to this? God can only say, "Yeah, I know that they are guilty. That's their own fault. They committed sin. There is nothing good in them." And God is saying, "That's why I am ready to take the full responsibility for their actions." This is exactly what God is saying. They are my children. And God is saying, "Yes, I know they are guilty, but I am ready to give everything to save them." So, in this situation, God said to Satan, "Let my people go. But if not, I am ready to smite my firstborn death." And the response of Satan was, "Well, I don't care." Satan's response to God, "Hey, you know what? You don't have guts to do it." Satan is saying, "Well, you know what? Your love is not big enough to sacrifice yourself." And God said, "Well, if you don't believe it, I will show you this is true. And God was ready to give his only begotten Son to rescue us. And from that perspective, this is something amazing because we didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve it. In fact, one of my favorite sentences wrote by Ellen White was that Jesus was treated as we deserve, so we may be treated as he deserves. But you know what? There is also one more tricky thing in that whole story of rescuing Israel from Egyptian slavery. Did you know that God didn't promise to set Israel free? Usually we are thinking this way, right? God set them free. But actually, God didn't say, I will set you free. You know what God said? Actually, we read this. God said, certainly I will be with you, and this shall be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God at this mountain. God didn't say, you shall be free. God said, you will serve someone else. God said, you will serve me. And actually, I can tell you that the Hebrew word abad or avad, this is exactly the word that was used and translated as being under the slavery. For example, Exodus chapter 1, verse 13. So the Egyptians brutally compelled the sons of Israel to slave labor. Abad. Hebrew abad. So God is saying, I will take you from the abad, the slavery of Egypt, and I will make you my abad. But you know, there is a huge difference. Being under the Egyptian slavery and being under the God's, let's say, the slavery, and being God's servants. And you know what? This is the difference that actually was explained by Christ. But before I will read the text for you, I just want to express one thing, you know. Let's see it, because I want to show you this, because actually this is exactly what modern Christianity is doing. They are saying, you know what? We were set free. Jesus died for us. Now we are free. We can do whatever we want. No, you can't. Because we have to be under someone's slavery. We have to be a servant of someone. We cannot live all alone. This is exactly what happened to Israel. God said, I want you to be my servant, not servant of Pharaoh. And Jesus, when he was dying on the cross, he did exactly the same. He said, I am dying to set you free. But by saying set you free, he says, I mean to make you a servant of God. And this is exactly what Jesus said, because Jesus, just before his death, he said, if you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. So commandments are still valid, okay? Let's read the next verse. These things I have spoken to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be made full. This is my commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that a person will lay down his life for his friends. And Jesus is saying, you are my friends if you do what I commanded you. No longer do I call you slaves. So we were called slaves. But Jesus is saying, I am not calling you slaves. I am calling you my friends. And he's saying, I am not calling you slaves. I am calling you my friends when you are doing what I have commanded. That's the difference. Being in the slavery of someone who hates you, who abuses you. And God is saying, hey, you can be my slave, but in fact, you will be my friend. And that's why I love this story, Jesus actually teaches that there is only one way to be free. And that way to be free is being faithful to God. There is no other way. Because if we are not faithful to God, we are putting ourselves into the bondage of sin, of someone who tries to destroy us. But God is saying, if you are faithful to me, you are my friend. You are no longer a slave. And of course, we know that actually from what Jesus said even in that story, we know that the biggest commandment is what? What is the biggest commandment? Love. Love is the biggest commandment. Well, we can divide it to love your God and love your neighbor. But actually, it is still about love, right? So this is exactly what Jesus is saying. This is the biggest commandment, to love each other, to love God. And you know what? Actually, Jesus is saying that this is really something that should be in our lives. And actually, Jesus is not saying, well, you know what, you have to stand someone's presence. Jesus is not saying, well, I know you hate that person, but, well, you have to survive her presence or his presence. No, Jesus is saying you have to love that other person. And this is a higher level, because I can go to the church, I can smile to everyone, and inside I can say, man, I hate that person. Right? And this is not Christianity, because Jesus is commanding us to love, not only to stand someone's presence. And you know what? There's a story that I would like to share with you, and this is a true story from my life that is also connected with the communion service that we had. I had an elder in one of my churches in Poland. And this elder, well, he hated me. I can really tell you, I remember once he was so angry at me. I'm not saying that he didn't have any reason to be angry at me, okay? But I remember once, he just said, you know what? I think we should go outside and have a real fight, because this is the only way I see that we can cleanse the situation, And I was like, dude, really? But actually, I can tell you that one day we went outside. but not to fight. We just wanted to have a place without other people, no witnesses, because we wanted to talk. And we had really totally honest dialogue, when he said what is bothering him, I said what is bothering me. And at the end of that story, at the end of this talk, we decided to pray, and we decided that during the next communion, we have to wash each other's feet. And you know what? Because we knew that there is something wrong, that the atmosphere, it have to be cleansed, we have to do something about this. And you know what? We could go to the same church, smile to each other, and pretend that everything is okay, and then go to our wives and say, you know what, this guy here, oh man, he is such a terrible person. We could do it. But instead, we just decided to talk. So, you know that during the foot washing, you have to kneel in front of that person and pray for that person and wish that person all the best. And I don't have any problem with this, but I just knew that we really needed this. And you know what? It took a while. I cannot say, well, after all, we hugged each other and say, well, brother, I love you, and from now on, everything was perfect. No, it wasn't like that. We had our strugglings, but you know what? Because we were really sincere in this, God helped us. He changed our hearts. And then, maybe 2 or 3 years later, we decided to plant a new church with him as a head elder. And actually he became my closest co-worker. Because we knew that we have to do something, And you know what? I can tell you that Jesus really did everything that was possible to set us free. But you know what? If we are not ready to talk to each other, if we are ready, just to pretend, just to stand others' presence, I can tell you, I think that we are not ready to love. If we are not ready to talk, we are not ready to love. And I can tell you even more, if we are not ready to talk, we are not ready to be set free. Think about this. Hey, I am living in America, the most, the country of freedom. I am Seventh-day Adventist, and we have our religious liberty services, and I am free. No, you're not. Because if you are not ready to talk to someone, you know what? You are still a slave. Because you are you enslaved yourself. Because if you are thinking, hey, no, I can't tell someone something. No, I can't do it. Yes, you can. If you are doing this with love, if you are doing something, to clear the situation, if you are doing something to help someone be better Christian, be better pastor, be better elder, be better everyone. It means that we are free. And we are ready to love. And that's why I believe that the love is the main rule. If we love each other, we can talk to each other. Even if we don't like something that someone did, and so on and so on. And I believe that this is the freedom that only Jesus can give us. And you know what? When I was writing this sermon, I just realized that this is something that I should say to you 2 weeks ago to give you a time to think about this and think, hey, maybe there is someone I should say something, maybe there is someone I think I should, clean the atmosphere or something, and yeah, that's right. Maybe I should say this 2 weeks ago to give you a time. But even today, even right now, we will go to wash our feet just in a few minutes. Maybe now is time to say, hey, you know what? I wasn't always good for you. I'm sorry. And maybe if you are thinking, well, I don't know if there is someone right now, maybe there is someone who is not here right now. But still, I think that at least we should be honest. And when we will be going down to wash our feet, we should promise to ourselves, hey, I think I will go to someone. And maybe I should say sorry for something. Or maybe that person did something against us. And you know that sometimes those people, they don't know that they did something against us. They don't realize that. It is possible. And maybe we should say, well, this is my decision. I want to be set free. I want to be free in Christ. And I am going to talk to that person just to clear the situation. You know why? Because I love that person. Because if I love someone, I am ready to talk. And sometimes I will tell you the last story. I was a teenager. My role in church was to collect money. And I remember once, there was a person, actually he was our elder, one of our elders. And during his service, he was talking very clearly, very loudly about everything that is wrong in the church. So I was listening to it, and then he used the sentence, and you know what? People who are collecting money in this church, I will not even mention what they are wearing. And you know what? And I was like, man, but you didn't talk to me. I was a teenager, I was so angry at him that I don't remember any other word from his service. Because until the end of the service, I was thinking about saying something, extremely, passive-aggressive. Something that will make him angry, but I will be very cultural. That was my idea, to make him as angry as I was angry after hearing this. So I was making my plans in my head. And during the final prayer, I prayed to God, God, please help me to do it in a proper way. So, I asked God to help me, but I had my plan in my head. And I went there. I stood in front of him. And I said, I had my whole speech in my head. And I just said, you know what? What you said during the sermon really hurt me. I would appreciate much more if you could share some ideas with me before you say it in public, and so on, and I was very peaceful. I just talked to him. He realized what he did. He actually said, well, actually, I didn't mean you. I meant some other people. But actually, he also didn't go to those people, so he didn't talk to them either. But you know what? We had clear situation. He didn't know that he hurt my feelings. He didn't know this. But I was ready to say it. And at the end, he said, well, Tytus, I'm sorry. He hugged me, and I was so happy. If we want to be free, we have to love each other. There is no other way to be free than love. Amen. So, friends, as I said, maybe right now it's a good time to talk to others, and go downstairs. And I want to invite you to do the food washing. I believe that we will be doing this in 3 groups: ladies, gentlemen, and married couples. I believe so. So, let's go downstairs.